Hey everyone, sorry about the mix up with the first stream. I was having audio visual issues, but we'll go ahead and get started now. This is going to be my event recap for the AoS GT at Flying Monkey Con. I got some notes I'll pull up here. All right. Um, this won't be this stream won't be too long. I'm gonna cover the some details of the event itself, my list, go through my games somewhat briefly, and then some post-event thoughts that I have after the event. So, Flying Monkey Con was the last weekend in September. So that would have been the weekend of the 28th, 29th in Wichita, Kansas. It's an event that is run by the Flying Monkey War Games Group based out of Kansas or Wichita, Kansas. The head TO for the Age of Sigmar event is Charles Fox. He's been running the AOS event for a while now, and it's a well-run event. Always a fun time. I think this is my fourth year, kind of post-COVID. I've only been attending the AOS event post-COVID. I don't know how many years AOS was happening pre-COVID, but I've gone to every event that's happened since COVID. It's always one I mark on my calendar, and usually has. This year there were about 50 players. I think there were about 70 um, 2 years ago, so somewhere in that range. So a good size event. Um, this year, first place went to Garrett Kennedy running OCR Bone Reapers, Arcan, and Catapults. Yep, Sean was there. 2022 was a big event. Uh, Second place this year was Philip Stair running Gloomspite Gits, Scragrot, and the Trogs. And third place was Garrett Keck running Slaves to Darkness with Bellacore. And I believe he had a reinforced unit of Vanguard and a reinforced unit of Chosen. Um, of note, Garrett Kennedy and Garrett Keck played for the best Garrett belt in round 4. And Garrett Kennedy ended up winning that one. So congratulations to him on first place, and as well as winning best Garrett. But third place and second best Garrett is pretty good prize as well to Garrett Keck. So good job to the top 3 finishers. I myself finished in 10th place, ending 3-1-1. Um, I that ties my personal record for best record at a GT. I also went 3-1-1 at the previous GT I attended, which was Vault Wars 2023, but I finished in 11th place overall then, 10th place this time. I'm going to consider this my best finish because I didn't have my first loss until the final round. I did get best death in 10th place. Death was the least represented Grand Alliance there. I think there were only 6 or 7 of us. So once I saw the list, that's what I was shooting for, and glad to say that I did accomplish that. Um, I was playing on table 2 in round 5, so that meant that a win in that game would have actually meant second place versus 10th. So can't ask for much more than being in position to podium going into that last round. All in all, good event. Thanks to Charles and the Flying Monkey crew for running it again this year. It did move venues for anyone interested or that has attended Flying Monkey in the past. It previously, I don't remember the name of the hotel, but it was in a hotel before in their kind of convention area. This time it moved to an actual convention center, so lots more space now. So I'd say that's a pro for anyone looking to attend in the future. And it's wasn't anyone that's played in the past. Age of Sigmar was kind of in their own room. It was a little tight, a little hot previously. The new space, much more room, much more ventilation. good experience. I think the move was a positive. Going into my list, as you can see, I'm calling it the more gasts list. So you can probably read between the lines on that, meaning I have quite a few more gas in the list. Um, I've been playing Bone Reapers pretty much all of 4.0. I dabbled with Corn and Cities of Sigmar a little bit real early, but I've been playing nothing but Bone Reapers since oh mid August or so. So a couple months. I played an RTT uh, where I went 2 wins and a draw to finish in second place, and then this is my second event with the Bone Reapers. I started out running Nagash and one unit of Morghast Harbingers, along with the Immortus Guard to give that bodyguard to Nagash, and then the rest of the list was more or less the same. I guess Nagash was my only hero, and I was a 1 drop at the time. So I also had 2 units of horses, and that was pretty much it. So I guess it wasn't exactly the same. But I found that I was uh, less likely, or I was hesitant to engage Nagash in combat, um, especially with commonly common units that you find in the game right now: Chosen, Varangard, um, Trogs. The big hammer units, as well as the kind of the killy heroes, Arcan. Um, that's not Arcan, Archaon. I would engage him with Arcan in melee, but uh, units like Archaon and yeah, stuff like that. I was hesitant to actually get him into combat, so that made me decide to move away from Nagash um, and into a second unit of Morghast, because part of the reason to bring Nagash is to be able to bring back that full unit of Morghast once per game. And I thought, what's better than bringing back a unit of Morghast than just bringing a second unit of Morghast to begin with? Because oftentimes opponents would figure out that I wanted to bring that unit of Morghast back. It's pretty obvious. Kill it down to 1 model and then just ignore it. And because they're 6 wounds, you are very unlikely to bring a Morghast back. Um, in the hero phase. So um, with rally, so I've found that I have more freedom of movement, and I'm more likely to actually be aggressive with my 2 units of Morghast than I was with a single unit. And that also freed up points to bring um, a unit of uh, the Tyrannic cohort, which you couldn't see on here. But so going through my list real quick, it's the Soul Mason with the Helm of Tyranny and the Aura of Sterility. So he is a 2-cast wizard, and um, I'm running the Mortison Council for the +1 to cast on him. So not as good at casting, obviously, as Nagash is, but also significantly cheaper. And he's a 2-cast wizard with +1 to cast, so that's pretty good. And his built-in spell is a fights first for that turn, so it's a useful it's a useful deterrent spell, and a decent one to cast on the opponent's turn, though it does require a 7 to cast. The Helm of Tyranny reduces control score of enemy units by 2 within 12 inches of him. Not something that comes up a ton because I'm not usually trying to throw him into melee, but the other options aren't great. And then the Aura of Sterility is -1 to be wounded in shooting for all Bone Reapers units wholly within 12. Um, didn't come up a ton in my games, but uh, the other option is -2 to charge to enemy units within 12 of him, and I think it's easier just to pull off the -1 to be wounded in shooting than it is to try to get your Soul Mason in range to reduce charge rolls. Then I had a reinforced unit of Morghast Archai for the 3-up save, really. So a more tanky unit, and then a reinforced unit of Morghast Harbingers. They can do the 3d6 charge and also kind of act independently because they can once per turn count as being in range of a hero for Relentless Discipline. So they're a real good kind of solo operative unit, and along with that fight first, they're a really good deterrent with the if you save the command points um, for the 3d6 counter charge. And then my second regiment is Archcavalos Xantos. Um, he's there for the +1. I mean, he's a fairly tanky hero at a 3-up save, 8 wounds. He's decent in melee. His attack is 3 damage on the charge. But he once per game can give a +1 attack if he's in combat to all non-hero Bone Reapers units wholly within 12. So really what you're trying to do is pull off the massive charge with all the Morghast. But I found myself either out of position or kind of forgetting that. So that's something I need to remember moving forward as I continue to play this army, at least for one more GT in the next couple weeks. And then finally, 2 units of Cavalos Death Riders, useful in a number of ways. They're fast, or at least relatively fast for Bone Reapers. Pretty good melee output, especially if you can get them into infantry, that sort of thing. They do double damage or 2 damage on the charge. Quite a few attacks. They can do mortals on the charge against infantry. And they're also, depending on what you're facing, they're also the screen in the army. So they're either grabbing objectives, harassing, kind of MSU infantry type units or small heroes, or screening. And they're not easy to pick up. 4-up save, 15 wounds for a 5-man unit, and a 6-up ward is not. You have to actually engage them with something meaningful to pick up the unit. And then finally, the Tyrannic cohort, which was a big win added to the army. Just the threat of deep striking into someone's backfield, whether it's for an objective or to, for the battle tactic, take their land, and then to be set up for future battle tactics, such as the death one. I can't remember what it's called, but the one where you have to have 2 units wholly in enemy territory outside of 9. They're basically set up for that. They're also then set up potentially to help take the flanks. And they're also not, ridiculously easy to pick up because that's a 14 wound unit on a 4-up save with a 6-up ward. So they themselves require actual output to remove them. So I found they were, I wouldn't say they were the MVPs, but they were useful in pretty much every single game to score me somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 12 points, not including whatever objectives they were able to grab, or at least help in scoring those. So yeah, I think my list is, I think this list is solid. I like it better than the Nagash variant. After I talk through my games a little bit, I have some notes on maybe some changes I'd like to make going forward, but we'll get into that at the end. Let me know if you've had any success running similar lists. I know Nagash and Catacross are both very common in Bone Reaper lists that are doing well. I just think I have more freedom of movement and ability to be a little more aggressive, at least than I was with the Nagash build. I have not tried Catacross. Maybe with the changes in the battle scroll, I would say Catacross is definitely tankier with the changes, considering shooting has decreased in its effectiveness with the changes to preferred target or whatever it's called. And I guess a couple more notes. One, this event was pre fall 2024 battle scroll, so none of the changes were in effect. So we were playing the pre-battle scroll ruling. So preferred, let me look, see what it's actually called. Priority target was the old version. So bonuses to hit and wound against the entire general's regiment with no range restrictions. So that's one big change. And then, of course, points changes were not in effect either. So some armies were with if you take the new points into effect, we're playing at a significant with significant amount of I don't want to call them bonus points, but there were lists that changed by 160 points to the negative. So um, just keep that in mind as I talk through this. And then secondly, with my honor guard, most games I was selecting special assignment, aka the bonus rend against a specific type of enemy, and it was based on the opponent. Uh, whatever unit I want to kill in that army, which is the point of that. And the reason I generally go with that one is because um, my Morghast are all wounding on twos anyway. There are some instances where you probably want to pick priority target. Maybe not now, going forward, but most of the time I'm picking the rend so that I can push for that -3 rend, or maybe even -4, or maybe even -5 rend potentially, um, with relentless discipline. Um, I, I was really trying to chew through armor saves, especially with 3d6 charge on the harbingers. It's I guess I can't get -5 rend. -4 is where I can tap out on the charge. But um, yeah, harbingers being able to charge 3d6 means you can pretty often determine, or you're in the driver's seat when it comes to making those charges. So I'll go through my games real quick. Oh yeah, and I did take the faction train, the Bone Titan Nexus. I've found that it can sometimes be a liability because it gives up battle tactics or easy charges. Um, so in my case, I painted it, so I like bringing it. So I'm gonna keep using it. It has not lost me any tournament games. So until it does, I will continue using it. But at this point, when I'm placing my Bone Tide Nexus, I'm putting it as far away from objectives as I can. So if enemies want to charge it and fight it or whatever, that they are having to move away from objectives to do it. And the ability is good. It's annoyingly on a 4+, so you can't rely on it. But when it does go off, it is decent. So yeah, Sean's right. I can get -5 rend with the purple sun. Good call. So Morghasts are rend 2 base. Uh, then you can get the -1 rend against a unit of your choice. And then I'm just double checking to make sure I'm not misspeaking. But they are also get an additional -1 rend. Yep, anti-monster -1 rend. So that would be where the rend 4 comes in. So I guess one final thought on the Bone Tide Nexus. I did get distracted on that. Um, the I do try to still set it up so it's within 18 inches of a couple of objectives, so that I can at least threaten the units on one or two objectives to make the opponent think. But generally, I try to keep it as far away as possible. But back to the Morghast real quick. They're -2 rend base. They're anti-monster -1 rend. So there's -3. You can give them um, what am I thinking? Yeah, I guess that's it. You can only get to -4 rend with the purple sun, or you can also get there if you are charged by choosing the relentless discipline for the additional rend. So -4 rend is actually where you tap out. Yep, you're right. I think we talked through it. Yeah. So talking through games real quick here. Round 1 was Jaws of Gallet. So that is 5 objectives. 4 in the table quarters, 1 in the center. I'm just flipping it to it in my book here. Uh, 4 in the table quarters, 1 in the center. Hold 1, hold 2, hold more. And then the underdog can remove an objective at the end of their turn. I think that's an important thing to remember when you're playing Jaws of Gallet. The removal happens at the end of your turn. So you can score the points and then remove it from the table, uh, so that your opponent can't score any points off that objective on their turn. Um, this game ended up being a draw. I was playing against Don Trice. I believe he's from Springfield, part of the Vault Wars crew. He ended up in 24th place, 2-1-2, 2 wins, a draw, and 2 losses. And he was playing Sons of Behemoth. Breaker Tribe with King Broad, 2 Gate Breakers, 3 Man Crushers. This game we ended up tying, and it was the only game that I played that didn't get through all 5 turns. So that was a bit disappointing considering we were both playing small armies, but it was the first game of the day of a GT, so that happens. And I know on the previous stream I said I was going to chess clock, but when I saw that my opponent was playing Gargants, I decided not to. And then, just spoiler alert, all the rest of my games finished without using a chess clock, with minimum of half hour to spare. This was first game of the day, just kind of getting into the swing of things, especially early in edition. So it kind of happens. I should have, if I wanted to make sure the game finished, I should have used the chess clock. So that's my fault. Not a big deal though. Still a fun game. Tight game. I um I I was in control on objectives, but I messed up a couple of battle tactics throughout the game where I ended up actually failing 2 battle tactics. So really, that was the story of the game. Had I been, I think I kind of got um, a little ahead of myself, looking past the Sons of Behemoth and just kind of thinking I could cruise control through the game based on opponents. Good question, Cody. One of them I picked Do Not Waver, and had I thought through what I was doing, it was obvious that there was a non-zero chance I was going to lose one of my units, and I had another battle tactic I could pick that would have been an easy one, and I was kind of saving it for turn 5. When looking at the clock, I should have just gone with the obvious, easy battle tactic and wrapped up the game. So I guess important lesson there is don't look past any opponent just based on their army. I know Sons of Bama aren't necessarily in a great place right now, but if you don't prioritize killing Gargants, and if you don't have, I guess, negative modifiers to their characteristics, they do have the ability to stick around and pick up your units. So yeah, I think had we gotten to round 5, I would have won the game because he was down to 1 Man Crusher and I still had 2 or 3 units left and he was on no objectives. So I certainly would have won. But we determined at the beginning of the game that we weren't gonna, we were gonna, whenever time ran out, that was gonna be it. So we stuck to that. Fun game, and honestly, maybe the draw ended up helping me. I submarined a little bit probably, as the guy who drew. On that note, it was random pairings within your win-loss bracket for the first 3 rounds, and then the second day was ranked pairings. So good game, fun game. First time I played Don, I've seen him around at events. He's come to RGT here in Omaha before, Bug Eater. So glad to finally get to play him, and it was a great game, and he played it well with the Gargants. So lots of respect there. And he, like I said, ended up in 24th place with 2 wins, a draw, and 2 losses. I guess kind of true neutral, um, true neutral result there. Game two was the Vice. I won this game. Played against Travis Boyson at Stormcast. He was playing Stormcast Eternals. He's also from Springfield. He is the head TO for Vault Wars, which is in a couple weeks in Springfield. I think there's some tickets left, if if I'm not mistaken. If you're interested, but he finished in 12th place at 3-2. He was playing, like I said, Stormcast Eternals, Sentinels of the Bleak Citadels. I think that is the um, sub faction that benefits the new. I can't remember what the new chamber is called, but it's the Reclusians and the Prosecutors. You can give them a 5-up ward. Um, you can choose to give one of those types of units a 5-up ward. So we had Bastion, which allows a pregame move. Unit of Prosecutors, which can charge 3d6. Good objective grabbers. Actually, decent damage output, especially on the charge as well. Unit of Reclusians, they do mortal wounds on crits. Then you had the Black Talons, which includes Knave Black Talon, the Deepkin Wizard, and then Knave's 3-person companion unit. Unit of 3 long strikes, excuse me, and then a unit of, Celestine on Stardrake. Quicksilver Draft, I believe, lets him fight first. And then Envoy of the Heavens, I think, allows him to give out a ward to a 5-up ward to a unit if something dies, if a Stormcast unit dies on the previous turn. And then a Night Vexillor, which is able to heal D3 units for 3 health and then give them +2 or +3 to their control score. So the idea was to, try to keep that Stardrake alive. This one we were playing the Vice, so that's 4 corner objectives turn 1, moving into 4 table quarter objectives turn 2 and 3, and then the center objective, single center of the table objective on turn 5. And that one is hold 1, hold 2, hold more for most of the game, but in battle rounds 4 and 5, and actually I misspoke. It's corner objective turn 1, table quarters 2 and 3, center objective turn 4 and 5. It's hold 1, hold 2, hold more, but on battle rounds 4 and 5, you can score 2 additional points if there's no enemy units within 6 inches of the center objective. Yeah. So, and then the underdog can choose an objective to do D3 mortals to each unit contesting that objective. So this is actually one of my favorite scenarios coming back from 2021. I've always liked this one. I know that's not everyone loves it, but I've always been a fan of this mission. It makes you move around the board and kind of pre-plan and think about what you're going to need to do when the objectives move. In this game, Travis ended up moving up Knave. I actually won priority by either by drops or by roll off in all of my games. So I gave away the turn, or I gave away first turn in the first game and then in the second game as well. He moved Knave and the prosecutors up in turn 1, and then got take the flanks, and then I was able to move up and kill the Black Talons and engage the prosecutors. He might have actually charged my one unit of flank horses with his prosecutors, but on the other side, I charged on my turn Knave Black Talon and ended up killing her before she could do her teleport away. And then I was kind of just able to move up. Yeah, he was very hesitant to want to engage my 2 units of Morghast, which was the point of having the 2 units of Morghast with his Stardrake, and I was able to move up the flank with 1 unit of Morghast, and and I was able to engage his. I was actually able to kill his Reclusians and 2 of his 3 Raptors um, in turn 2, and at that point, I had removed enough to kind of really hamstring him. I then ended up killing Bastion. Ended up failing a charge. I killed him on my next turn, and then by then I had control of most of the table, and there just wasn't enough left to remove my units to for him to be able to hold enough objectives and also gain battle tactics. So, um, just some decent luck on my side to make some charges, and I don't know if it was necessarily lucky that my harbingers killed his Reclusians. They put out a lot of attacks, especially if I get empowered Nadirite weapons on them for crit 5s. They just have the potential to do a lot of damage, and I believe I did anti infantry -1 rend in this game, so they were -3 rend against the Reclusians on the charge. Cody, did anything surprise me about his list? I know Travis likes to play Stormcast. I'd never actually played him before, but I know he plays Stormcast, and once again, he's a guy that's come to Bug Eater before. He's a good player. I don't think necessarily. Mm, uh, Nothing surprised me per se about his list, other than maybe the output that the prosecutors uh, have now with their shooting and their extra damage on the charge. I think they're they kind of used to be they kind of used to do nothing when it came to killing stuff, but now they actually have decent output, and because they have a 3-up save, they'll hang around for a while if you don't if you're not careful. I would have liked to see what the Reclusians could do in combat with their crit mortals. So I'm still excited to see what the Reclusians can do. I just, unfortunately for Travis in this game, I was able to kind of pounce on him before he was able to really show their mettle, I guess. Um, hope that answered your question. Game 3 was shifting objectives, and I once again played a Stormcast player, Jesse Brandt. He's I think from the Kansas City area. He ended up 44th place, 1-4 overall. Shifting objectives is the 3 objectives across the center line of the table. Um, the I think it's the player that goes first in the round. Yeah, the player going first in the battle round rolls a dice, and that roll determines which objective is worth more points. So let's see, you score 1 point for each secondary objective you control, aka the one that's not the primary. You score 2 points for the primary, 2 points if you control more. And then in this one, the underdog can force the player to re-roll the dice for the primary objective, and that means you can make yourself re-roll too if you're the one going first and you're the underdog. So this scenario, the deployment zones are really far apart in this one, and they're fairly small. So you're starting pretty far apart, but with all 3 objectives being in the center of the table, you kind of have to. It forces engagement, I'll say. And I played Jesse last year at Flying Monkey, and he actually got the best of me. He beat me pretty soundly. It was a Stormcast versus Stormcast matchup then, and I learned the hard way how tanky Star Drake could be last edition. But this year he was playing the Vanguard wing with Ionis Cryptborn. He's the newer dragon mounted priest, 2 cast or 2 prayer, 2 chant priest, unit of reinforced Vanguard Raptors with long strike crossbows. I think most Stormcast lists you'll see will have some amount of Vanguard Raptors. They have good range. They do auto wounds on crits to hit, Ren 2, damage 2. So they're pretty good, pretty good ranged output. And then Regiment 2, which Indrasta, unit of Vanguard Hunters, Vanguard Paladors, and then Regiment. His third regiment was Krondus for the dual cast. The dual cast wizard. So in this game, I remember specifically Jesse was trying to determine what battle tactic to take turn one, and he decided to do take the center, or whatever it's called, the one where you have to have 2 units within 3 inches of the center, not in combat. And the units he ended up engaging in the center were Krondus and Ionis. And basically, he got his battle tactic and scored all the points he could score. And then he screened a little bit with his Vanguard Hunters. But on my turn 1, I was able to get into Ionis and pick him up with 1 unit of Morghast. And then I was able to, and then I got the double. I took the double, if memory serves, and I was able to pick up Krondus on the next turn. So by that point, I hadn't really lost any of my units, and I had picked up, over 1,000 points, because I'd killed the Vanguard Hunters by then too. So I'd killed over 1,000 points of his army, and it was kind of, by the time my turn 2 was over, it was pretty much a sealed deal at that point, just because he didn't have the output to remove everything. He did end up killing quite a bit of my stuff with Indrasta and the long strikes, and he to his credit, he scored what points he could, but just the removal of 1,000 points turn 2 was too much to overcome. But so I got I was able to win my second matchup against Jesse, and maybe next year at Flying Monkey we'll play the rubber match to see who wins the series. But still a great game, and so was the game against Travis. To be honest with you, I guess I don't know why I said to be honest with you. The game against Travis was also fun. So going at the end of the first day, I was 2 wins and a draw, and things were looking pretty good. So round 3, I ended up. Did he pull off any of the Vanguard teleports? No, he didn't really get a chance to do much of the teleporting, because I killed his Paladors fairly early too. The Paladors ended up the unit he brought back, and he just I don't think he did any of the teleports throughout the game. He just wasn't in a position to take advantage of them, and that one's tough too, because if your opponent has enough board control that they can zone off all the objectives, then the teleports, they're not. You can't. It's hard to teleport 2 objectives. So answer your question, Brett. No, I don't think he did. I don't recall him doing any teleports in that game. So going in round 4, this is where ranked matchups, ranked pairings came in. So actually, Brett attended Flying Monkey with me. Him and another guy, local guy, Billy. We were able to kind of math out who we were going to play the next round, and surprisingly, I believe all of our math worked out. I know mine did. I'm pretty sure Billy's did, and I'm pretty sure Brett's did as well. But game 4 was Battle for the Pass, so that's 4 objectives. Kind of a wonky deployment zone. It makes it very difficult to get a battle tactic turn 1. Take the flanks is pretty much impossible turn 1, unless you're maybe like Lumineth Realmlords or something that can move very, very fast. Take the flanks is nearly impossible. So you have to really think about battle tactics and battle for the pass. So I played against James Howes, Slaves to Darkness. He ended up in 28th place at 2-3. Um, he is a very good player, though. So I don't think that 2-3 record really uh, is a good reflection of his skill. I'm fairly certain he has a golden ticket for the Warhammer Championships this year in Atlanta as well. So he is a very good player. Um, he was playing really elite list though, as you can see here. Archaon, a unit of Furies, a unit of non-reinforced Varangard, and then Chaos Lord on Karkadrak, a unit of Knights, and a unit of Warriors. So all very tanky stuff, but not a ton of units. And this scenario with only 4 objectives is not terrible for an army like this, I don't think. Um, but he chose to do take their land turn 1, um, and hold his objective and one of the side objectives or the middle of the table objectives uh, with his Furies, and then on my uh, on my turn 1, I held one objective, and also I believe I did do not waver on the Furies because I knew I could at least charge them, if not actually uh, kill them. So I would still at least get the battle tactic. But what ended up happening was um, I gave him turn 1. He on his turn 1 though he used Archaon's ability to roll the dice and see who would go first in the second battle round, and it actually went to me. So he knew it was going to be a double. So he moved Archaon way back on the board, um, which meant if I wasn't, overly aggressive, Archaon was not going to affect the battle a ton, at least until turn 3, depending on if he got the 3d6 charge off. And that's what ended up happening. I moved up, charged the Furies with a couple of units. Ended up, and then I believe he countercharged me with his Karkadrak. And the Karkadrak, to his credit, ended up holding up my unit of Harbingers for basically the entire game. Because by the time I killed him, he had charged them with the Knights, and the Knights ended up mopping them up, along with a unit of um, my Death Riders. So um, I think he was kind of a throw-in unit, but he was the MVP as far as the Slaves to Darkness were concerned in this game. But one mistake that James made was he did roll his 3 up for his Furies and was able to retreat. But he, instead of moving them off to the side, he moved them behind me, which then um, allowed my cavalry that charged into them to actually pile back towards them, and I was able to kill them in that same combat. So that took away his fastest unit and something that could have then threatened my objective in the backfield the entire game. So that was we talked after the game, and he said, yeah, that was a mistake to move behind me, but I guess I'm happy to say I took advantage of it in this case. So he double fought. He double fought with his Karkadrak. That's what that Deathmonger ability does. It allows him to fight twice, once per game, and really just held up my Harbingers. So they were that was it. That was all they did the whole game, was fight him and Knights, and then up dying. And on the other side of the table, his Vanguard charged in to my screening other unit of Death Riders, and he was forced to, to make sure he could kill them. He went ahead and did the double fight. So he used up his 2 double fights, and then I clapped back at the Vanguard on my turn 3, picked them up, and then it was just kind of a game of movement at that point. Throwing up screens, making sure he couldn't be on too many objectives at once. And then the game came down to actually in his turn 5, um, he could have potentially tied me on a battle tactic with a 9-inch charge uh, with the Chaos Knights, but I chose to redeploy. So basically, if I got the 4 up, he would not be able to make his charge and therefore not get his battle tactic. And I ended up getting a 4. So that at that point the game was sealed, and um, I ended up winning by a few points. So at that point, I was 3 wins and a draw, and I was on table 2. And the final battle round was close to the chest, which is 6 objectives. It's the one where you have to choose one of yours to be the priority objective, and it's worth more points on your opponent's turn. And the underdog can force you to choose a different one. I played against Garrett Kennedy, the ultimately the winner of the tournament. I lost that game. He was playing Bone Reapers with Arcan and a couple of Mortek Crawlers, unit of Death Riders to grab objectives, unit of Harbingers. Really, after talking to him, they were more of a distraction or screening unit in this list, and then Mortek Guard, a reinforced unit to really be able to screen out his catapults, and then the Tyrannic Cohort to be able to deep strike, and then the Soul Mason as well. So he was 5 casts, and just good magic, good ranged output, okay melee output, but really the threats come from the crawlers. This my big mistake. So I think this was a tough matchup for me against the crawlers, especially in the um, pre battle scroll update, because the crawlers were able to. One of the crawlers was able to get preferred target against my entire general's regiment. Um, so those benefit and pre-battle scroll means no all-out defense against covering fire either. But my big mistake in this game was choosing letting him go first. I could have chosen to go first, which is what I should have done against this uh, shooting army. I should have, even if it wouldn't have changed the outcome in the end, I should have just pressed and forced him to, maybe I don't think he would have made a mistake, but maybe force him into making a mistake, just seeing my entire army coming towards him. But I let him go first, so he was able to chip off some of my models turn 1. Then I moved up, took the covering fire anyway, um, and I did make some charges turn 1. Um, I was able to engage one of his crawlers, um, and then, but I could not pick up enough of the Mortek Guard. They're uh, ethereal if you charge them, so that's good. They're also -1 rend when they're charged, so they're a pretty good unit for screening those catapults. I would say a very good unit for screening those catapults. I made some more mistakes at that point as well. I was kind of flailing at that point. I tied up a catapult and then I stupidly retreated from it because I wanted to potentially get a 3d6 charge and tie up both. But the whole point was to uh, not get covering fired by the catapult that had the preferred target, priority target, whatever it's called. And so I stupidly did that. He 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 covering fired me, killed some more of my stuff. So it was you know at least 2 pretty big mistakes in that game. But ultimately, I think unless some things really go my way, um, I think I'm on the back foot in that game no matter what, because those crawlers are really good against infantry, um, and every save that you fail is a potential to pick up a model or most of a model or a handful of models, depending on what they're shooting at. So I have a newfound respect for those catapults, and their fight last ability is actually uh, better than what I recalled that it was too, because it's basically I'll uh, I'll pull it up here real quick, but it's basically you roll pick an enemy targeted by shooting attacks and roll a dice. And on a 4-up, they have strike last. You also get to add 1 to the roll if it's within if any other Mortek crawlers targeted it. So the strike last ability is also pretty good. Yes, the catapults did bone me from a distance, Dan. Newfound respect for catapults, but Garrett did a great job. Um, we were battling it out for a podium and best death. I still ended up best death, but he ended up in first place. So congratulations to him. It's a really good list. It has bad matchups as well. I would guess that I did win best mat. I was the only mat there this year, so I won best mat. I had that title wrapped up the second I walked in, and he won best Garrett, as we covered earlier in the event. So congratulations to Garrett and the other podium finishers. Good job to them. Good event. I do have a list of some takeaways here. Covered a little bit already. Mortek crawlers much better than I gave them credit for, especially against infantry. Their output potential is massive. Just 4 attacks each, D3 plus 2 damage, -2 rend against infantry. They wound on 2s. I think they are negatively affected by the battle scroll changes, but I don't think they're as negatively affected as other shooting units are, because they already wound on 2s, and they have a battle formation that allows them to get +1 to hit for up to 3 of them. So now that where you'll really see the impact is on covering fire, but I still think you're going to covering fire with them every single turn. You pay enough points, and they actually went down by 20 points each. I don't know if that that doesn't gain you much, 40 points in a Bone Reaper's army, but any points drop is a positive. Might gain you that extra command point anyway. Mortek Guard also already covered this, but I think they are better than I gave them credit for. Really good unit for screening those catapults. Not easy to pick up on the first turn that you charge them. Another takeaway is I need to rally those Morgas, or anyone really running Morgas. If you get the chance to rally them before a model dies, just spend the command point to rally them, because once you lose a model, you're not getting it back. They're 6 wounds, so it's not worth spending the rally point to try to get a model back. So rally when you can. It's just every one of those you lose is a big hit to your output. I talked about my mistake in game 5 already. Should have taken first turn. Should have pressed. Force the issue. Force him to deal with force the opponent to deal with my whole army, basically, instead of letting him pick me off. So that was, I was kind of in autopilot mode on giving away the first turn, because I usually want to give away the first turn and then be in position to threaten with 2 units of Morghast on my turn 2. Potentially get the double, and it came into play. I was able to utilize the double very well in at least one game. So yeah, against a shooting army like that, I really just need to, if you're an all melee army, especially if you have fairly fast units and combined with 3d6 charge, it's worth just pressing the issue and trying to at least force your opponent to think, and maybe they'll make a mistake. At the top table, round 5, probably not, but at least make them think about it. I am considering changing my harbingers to one to 2x2 versus 1x4. I think it gives me some additional board presence, lets me spread out on objectives a little more, and gives me two chances at those kind of long bomb charges. Um, but there are cons to that: less value when I'm spending CP, and then more likely to lose. It's a lot easier to kill two more guys than four and take out the unit. Um, so definitely some considerations to think through before the next event. Um, not only the values, it's not just the CP value either. It's also the spell casting value, the empower Nadirite weapons, and the strike first spell. Um, so I'll really have to think about it, because there's not a whole lot of other changes to be made to the list. The points are just tight. And then I've thought about some other changes, like dropping the Arch Cavalos, but he's the only one that allows me to take the Death Riders in the army in its current makeup. So I don't think it really makes a whole lot of sense to drop him. I need those Death Rider units. So I'm going to play a practice game this week. I'll probably try the 2x2 and see how that works, and then that'll be my last practice game before my next GT. So I'll make the decision then. If I can get the spells completed in time, hobby-wise, I'll probably swap out Morbid Conjuration. I barely even touched on that, because I only successfully cast one the entire event. Either I wasn't trying to cast them, or I failed or got unbound. But my focus is usually on casting Fight First and Empower Netherite weapons. So I'm not casting a lot of manifestations anyway. But that being said, I think there are times when the Bone Reaper's manifestation that reduces wards by one could be big. So if I can get them painted up in time, I'm definitely going to switch out the Morbid Conjuration spells for the Bone Reapers ones. With only two casts and some really good spells in the Bone Reaper lore and on the Soul Mason's War Scroll, it becomes it's difficult to even consider casting a manifestation. But if you bring one in that can reduce wards, that's big against certain armies. And then finally, just talking about the battle scroll and where my list is now, because the next GT in a couple weeks, we will be using the new battle scroll. I think, if you've watched any of the post battle scroll tier list review type content from other creators out there, everyone thinks Bone Reapers are still in a great spot, and I would agree with that. I do think they had they didn't have any big points hikes in it, and they actually had points drops, so that's just a thumbs up right there. I do think the bodyguard, the increase in bodyguard hurts Morghast a bit. Every attack you take away from a unit like that is tough, but you just need to try to engage the bodyguard before you actually fight the hero, because you have to be in combat with the hero for the -1 attack to come into play. So go kill the bodyguard if you can. The Harbinger is charging 3d6 will hopefully make that a little easier to accomplish. But if you have ranged units in your army, try to take down that bodyguard first, and then you don't have to worry about the reduction in attacks. The priority target rule hurts crawlers. We covered this already a little bit, or I covered this already a little bit. But I don't think it hurts them a ton, since, like I said, they already wound on 2s. So, and you can easily get +1 attack to multiple crawlers if you build for it. And then Catacross and Nagash, I haven't run Catacross. I think I might have mentioned that earlier. I haven't tried him this edition. I did run Nagash quite a bit early. They're both more survivable for sure because you're more likely to take bodyguard now. So that reduction in attacks against them makes them harder to kill, and then ranged units just not being able to necessarily take advantage of preferred target on covering fire specifically just makes them more survivable as well. So um, my list and OBR in general, I think, are still. I agree with pretty much everyone else out there that says OBR is still good. Um, yeah, so that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to talk about. Cody, thanks for the compliment there. Appreciate that. Um, if you have any other questions, just feel free to comment on this video, and Sean or I'll more than likely respond to it at some point. I would like to I'll probably do a unit tier list sometime after the next GT, which so we're talking 3 or 4 weeks for OBR. All that being said, once I'm done with the next GT, I will probably move off of OBR. My main reason for playing them actually this edition was that I really wanted to paint an army from the ground up all myself. So most of my other armies, I've had at least something painted by someone else, or I purchased something that already happened to be painted and that sort of thing. So, I had a few armies sitting there that didn't have a lot of paint on them, and OBR was one that looked pretty rewarding to play early in the edition. I like the relentless discipline mechanic. It kind of gives you some options for what you can do. You got to kind of choose wisely when to use which ability. So I find them very rewarding to play, but I guess I'm I'm the kind of person that if I play something too long, I kind of get bored with it. So I'll be moving to something different um, after Vault Wars in a couple of weeks. We have a local 1-day event here in December, so I'll more than likely not be playing Bone Reapers at that event. Uh, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for watching if you catch this after the fact, and hope you join us next time.